For the record, my name is Dr. Adler, and I have been offered a position in the Church of the Husk as a head of Husk Ascendancy. Now, unlike many chapters of the Church I have encountered before, this one seems to be completely dedicated to understanding the Husk first and foremost, to seamlessly hybridize humans and Husks into a new species. Needless to say, I had to take the offer, as the Coalition now counts the research I had done for them on Husks now retroactively count as acts of terrorism. So it was either join the Church of the Husk or stay and face execution at the hands of a Coalition court. As a test of my understanding of Husks, this chapter has provided me with a gene-spliced Husk host. The origin is human, and both the Husk and the host died from kinetic force, seemingly. I don't know what I am looking for, but I suppose that is the point of this exercise. Even before the supposed death of the individual, there are numerous scars marking the subject's body. Many of these seem to be synonymous with the locations of typical gene splicers, no doubt loaded with different variants of Husk DNA. Hopefully I can get a look at the files on those if this chapter was the one who made the alterations, and keeps an extended record on them. There are also a number of peculiar locations as well. Not only scar tissue, but evidence of infection and internal irritation are visible on the skin alone. I have seen these a few times. These are street-modified Coalition splicers. Some simply can't get enough adaptation to the European Ocean, and in a sense, often become addicted to these procedures and feelings of power, whether they are real or imagined. In addition, often enough, many will go through illicit means and rather discreditable individuals for slapshot surgery, more often than not resulting in infections and other quite debilitating symptoms. After making a vertical incision in the chest cavity of the subject, it is rather putrid, if almost not completely hollow. A dual set of prongs has descended from a kitten-like shell that has lodged itself in the throat, and has almost completely appropriated the lungs by spreading some form of small, hyphae-like roots along the organ's membranes. More often than not, the Husk parasite will change the biology of the lungs, dedicating each one to a new function. One is usually converted into a gill sac, altering the respiratory system of the host, enabling them to separate oxygen from the European waters and yet still live in a highly oxygenated environment, in addition to eliminating possible gas pockets to mitigate the outside pressure. And the other often becomes a breeding pod for the husk eggs in order to further the propagation of the parasite. Both of the subject's lungs seem to have been converted into gill sacs, with one having shriveled up a long time ago and the other one only showing recent decay. It isn't uncommon for this to occur and some other organ to be converted into a breeding pod. Often, this can occur as well in the stomach or kidneys, though all other organs not critical for Husk's functionality are either gone or have been digested. Moving to observe the tendons and muscles of the subject, when infection occurs within a host, the Husk will treat and reinforce the muscles, tendons, and epidermis, ridding the body of gas pockets that could collapse and injure the host while under the intense pressures of the deep European waters. Though there seem to be a number of gas bladders that have developed around the modified gene splicers, quite possibly a mutation from the illicit way they were obtained. Though there are no signs that these have ever burst, possibly a sign of only staying within the interior of a submarine or colonial environment. The tendons and muscles of the subject are quite odd, showing signs of already being necrotic, so to speak, yet still functional. This is usually the state that the Husk induces in the host body once the host's brain has sufficiently shut down. Then the Husk starts secreting a unknown chemical that keeps the tendons and bones of a host together long after the rest of the body has rotted away. The rest of the lower organs, the intestines, gonads, etc., have atrophied or were digested by the Husk, deeming them worthless. The only point of interest on the subject left is the core husk bound to the host. The core in the subject has burrowed through the back of the throat and used a chemical agent to bind itself to the spinal cord, fairly common in husk infections, though this one in particular seems rather underformed, among perhaps the smallest I have ever observed. No obvious traces of their chemical sacs, yet the tendons were already altered as if the husk took over long ago. Remarkably, there seems to be no intrusion into the cranial cavity, though whether this is due to sheer luck or the genetics of the host, I couldn't say at this point in time. As it stands, I am more than confident that this subject was injected with a diminutive husk strain that was altered by a third party. Even as with random chance in nature, coming across a defective husk that manages to infect a host is almost non-existent and is more likely to lay dormant than ever actually gain one. As well, I believe the other genetic malformations are a result of these street-modified gene splicers, causing unknown damage not only to the DNA samples, but the DNA of the husk itself. Ultimately, I do not know what the church was looking for when they gave me this subject as a test. Only time will tell with that. This is Dr. Adler signing off, hoping that there is a next report to give in the near future. Thank you for watching another one of my videos. This video in particular was just a experiment to see what I could use in terms of a fictitious husk autopsy, and honestly it was rather fun. Now, concurrently I'm in the midst of researching all the new stuff that was added to Barotrauma the other week, so expect new videos to follow relatively soon as I get more research done on them. Also, I apologize for any audio in the video, because when I recorded it, I was a little sick that week. I apologize. Until next time, please have a nice and safe weekend.